Good morning. You're watching DeProgram with Ted Rall and John Kiriakou. Thank you for joining us on Thursday, March 12th. Good morning, John.
Morning, Ted. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm trying to hope my voice isn't too squeaky this morning. Inside joke from yesterday. Obviously, we're going to be talking about the Iran is basically losing the air war, but winning the sea war. They have choked the Strait of Hormuz. We'll be talking about that. And we'll talk about the economic impact with oil back at about $100 a barrel. And, we're going to see, I think, a ripple effect throughout the entire global economy. That's, I think the Trump administration would like to sort of bring in for a soft landing, but I'm not so sure that's likely to happen anytime soon. John Thune, the Republican leader, is sort of at war with his own conference about the Save America Act. We'll talk about something that they really shouldn't want because it will only cost Republican votes. Democrats should want it, but don't want it, even though they'll get more votes. It's insanity. But anyway, as always, please like, follow, and share the show. We really appreciate your support. We're closing in on 30,000 subscribers. So that's on YouTube. Thank you so much for that. And for your generous donations and the super chats and all that. As always, we will try to get to all of your questions, especially the super chats, but all of them. So please, if you're watching live on Rumble or on YouTube, go ahead in the 9 o'clock hour and put those questions into the live chat, and producer Robbie West will get to them. Speaking of producer Robbie West, let's bring him in. He has some housekeeping to take care of, as we call it.
Howdy. So I know that there have been some complaints about missed super chats and rants. I get you. You're paying money to ask a question. It would only be polite of us to answer the question that you paid to have asked. So if it does get missed, we have a workaround. Take a picture of it, a screenshot. Then email me. Send me the screenshot of your question at westglaciergaming@gmail.com, and I will make sure that's at the top of the stack. So I can't think of a better way to do this. I'll talk to John and Ted later on about maybe having one day a week where we just do Q&A. We'll see what happens. Can't make that promise, but I will control whatever I can. So email me, and I will do everything I can to make sure that your pithy and witty question that you paid for is answered in a timely manner.
Yeah, please be advised. We definitely, if it's missed, it's an accident. It's never on purpose.
Never.
Y'all have no idea what it looks like on the back end. You have no idea. It is.
I can't keep up with it.
Yeah, no, I mean, like when you're out and I'm trying to keep up with it, John and I are trying to keep up with it. Even if we split it up, like, hey, John, you look at the Rumble, I'll look at the YouTube, or whatever. It's just like literally flying by. I mean, well, look, if you're in the chat, you sort of know, right? Because you see how fast it moves.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you get missed, it's not intentional. It's not us trying to be jerks. It's just life happens.
We're not ingrates, Yeah. Thanks, Robbie. I appreciate that. So that's it reminds me of one time someone came up to me. No, I read online like, Ted Rall's really mean. I went up to him at an event at Comic-Con. And he didn't talk to me. He didn't pay attention to me. And I'm like thinking, I would never do that, like ever. So something must have been up, right? Like I must have just been talking to someone else, or, I was on the phone or whatever. I mean, obviously it had to be a misunderstanding. And it kills me because I'm like, I'm a lot of bad things, but like I'm not that kind of bad thing.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. We'll be looking at those questions in just a second, and Robbie will be putting them up for us in the Telegram chat that we have. But in the meantime, let's talk about the economy. I mean, I thought it's really interesting. Oil prices are soaring. We have 5 or 6 vessels that have been struck now by Iranian fire in the Strait of Hormuz. Trump is saying that is urging the captains to grow some balls and basically try to run
their way through. Yeah,
dodge their way through. Anyone ever see Captain Phillips? There's only like 5 or 6 dudes on these tankers, right?
Yes.
And there's a skeleton crew. You would think it would be 200 people.
They can't defend the ship. They can protect themselves. There's a way. What they do is they barricade themselves inside the engine room, which is like armored and triple locked, and there's an emergency stash of food and water in there, and they can control the engine from inside the engine room. They can override the bridge, but that's all they can do is disable the ship and just wait for help to come.
Which in a war zone isn't likely to happen.
That's right.
And then like, even if they're able to get in touch by satellite phone, with, corporate in Oslo or Taipei or whatever, they're going to say like, sit tight, you don't move, you are not to risk $400 million of crude oil.
And one of the things that I learned, Ted, when I was on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee staff, because one of my issues was international piracy, and I brought Captain Phillips down to testify. We sat for hours together.
That's cool.
One of the things that I learned was that by international treaty, no civilian ship is allowed to carry a weapon. So they're on their own.
Yeah, wasn't that the controversy over the sinking of the Lusitania?
Yeah.
That basically because obviously it was carrying material.
It was carrying arms. Yeah.
And like, so the Germans said, well, this is a fair target. And I guess that's kind of also, the law and doesn't, correct me if I'm wrong, don't some aspects of the law of the sea also kind of deal, bleed over into air transport?
Yes, but that's far more controversial because the U.S. is famously not a signatory to the law of the sea.
The U.S. is always like, we don't sign the Mine Convention.
No.
Right? We don't.
No, we're wrong about so many of these issues.
Well, but then, John, as you know very well, we signed the Convention on Against Torture.
There it is.
And, but that's just a piece of paper. It doesn't have the force of law as a full treaty obligation signed, ratified by the United States Senate or anything.
Right.
So, the IEA, the International Energy Agency, which is a consortium of 32 nations, they just ordered the release of 400 million barrels of oil to be released from their reserves. The U.S. is thinking of doing a big release from its strategic reserve. But, John, my understanding is that this is a drop in the bucket. It's not going to really have much of an impact because the impact of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz is so big that it's like impossible for any strategic reserve to make up for that.
Yes. And, the funny thing, too, well, it's not funny. It's that Donald Trump, you'll recall, viciously mocked Barack Obama when he released oil from the strategic oil reserves, saying that it was just a stunt to keep oil prices down. Okay, so what are you doing? This is just a stunt to keep oil prices down. It was just 1 week ago, barely 1 week ago, that Donald Trump was bragging about how when he took, this was so disingenuous, when he took office, gas was $6 a gallon in some states. He meant California, which has nothing to do with anything. That's an unusual situation. But now, in many cases, it's $1.89 a gallon. Nowhere was it $1.89 a gallon. Well, now it's up $1 a gallon from a week ago.
More.
I paid $2.56.9 a week ago. And yesterday I paid $3.54.9, so 98 cents for me.
My local station went from $2.55 to $3.85 in 9 days. So, it is, speaking of piracy, right? It's like, come on, the oil you guys paid for, that oil's been going through refineries for the last few years.
Exactly.
The gas that we're putting into our cars now, but they're assholes.
Exactly right.
One time I pulled up to my gas station in Long Island, and it was hilarious. It was owned by like this very mean lesbian woman. And she just as I pull up to the curb, she prompts up and throws the price change like with a magnet up onto the pump as I pull up. It goes up 20 cents. I'm like, and I go, really? Just now? And she's like, I just got the call.
Oh my God.
So it's like that.
Oh my God.
So, let's. So John, I got to ask you a question. By the way, I'm not sure Is your Telegram loading? I'm not seeing the live chats. Are you?
I'm not actually.
Okay, maybe something's up on Robbie's side. Hold on.
You know what? I was assuming it was just a weirdly slow day.
Robbie, what's going on? Are we not getting questions?
We are. It's glitching. Hold on, I'm refreshing it.
Okay. All right. Because we're not seeing it. All right. I just saw one. Okay, good. Thanks. Okay. See, this is the thing. I mean, with tech stuff, there's no way we can put out the fires. Right. So anyway, we got to talk about this school. You were appalled. We all were when the elementary school was blown up. Now we know it was by the Americans, and now we know how it happened, right? So basically, we talked a little bit about this. This elementary school, 175 people or more, including a lot of young kids, because it was an elementary school, and presumably teachers and staff, and maybe parents, were all blown up by this Tomahawk missile. Back in the very beginning of the U.S. and Israeli war against Iran, the Trump administration denied that the U.S. had anything to do with it, but now the internal investigation at DOD has confirmed that, like, yes, of course it was us. And Trump even said, like, oh, anyone can have a Tomahawk cruise missile, like, Clovis could have one. It's like, but that's not true. So it's targeting data, right? So the targeting data was basically this was turned into a school back somewhere between 2013 and 2016. All right, so that's 10 to 13 years ago, and this is a John Kiriakou special question, right? You've had dim things to say about the DIA in the past. Yeah, this appears to be map information provided by the DIA. So I have multiple questions about this, but basically, is it routine for the DIA to suck this bad? And then my other question is, are they? I mean, okay, it's one thing. I understand you have old information, right? But if something becomes a target, isn't there an obligation to double, triple, quadruple check at this point, just to make sure that dot your I's, cross your T's, make sure everything's cool?
See, this is how we accidentally bombed the Chinese embassy in Belgrade, right? Because the targeting information is often wrong, rarely updated appropriately. And listen, I know people are going to complain, but I'm going to say it anyway. DIA is largely made up of people who just couldn't make it through the CIA process. Like, they really, really, really want to work in Intel. They're not very bright, but by God, they want to work in Intel, and they end up at DIA. Yeah, it happens all the time. And this is another thing. You're supposed to not just check, double check, triple check. You're supposed to then send it to other offices to check, double check, and triple check to make sure you don't do things like blow up a girls' school and kill all the children inside. So
and also, is it routine for the data to be this fucking old? Yeah, I mean, that's really fucking old.
Yep, it is. It's very, very old. Yes, but again, updating it would require them to, I don't know, look at a satellite photo and see if there are children there playing in the yard.
Well, that's my question, right? Or send a drone to circle ahead beforehand, or a live satellite feed. John, I know you know this, obviously. Like, the Soviets used to, they obviously, we knew they had military bases in this area or whatever, but they would always sort of move them on the map a few miles away from really where they really were. Yeah. How does an agency like the Maps Agency or the Defense Intelligence Agency or the CIA, how do they obtain, let's say, a reliable map of an adversary country that's not voluntarily providing accurate information? Let's say you were, China, let's say. Yeah. What would you, how do they know, for example, this was a Revolutionary Guards facility until 2013?
They have an army of analysts sitting at these giant light tables, like the size of an architect's drafting board, with these little telescopes. They look like little telescopes, not telescopes, but like oversized jeweler's loops.
Mm.
And they're looking at literally every square foot of a country.
And this is satellite imagery.
Satellite, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So now with drones, it's a lot easier because you can have real time, feeds. But an army of people just looking foot by foot by foot. And then once you establish a baseline, it makes it that much easier. And then one analyst passes it to the next analyst and then on to the next analyst. It's far easier now with drones because if you're not sure about something, many times you can just send a drone to go take a closer look at it.
So I think this is going to be a perfect storm, right? It turned out to be 5 different errors or whatever, right?
Oh yeah, this should never have happened, Ted.
And
never have happened.
Will there be any accountability, even within the system? I mean, like in other words, is there so no one?
No.
It's just like sucks to be a first grader in Iran. That's all.
When the president just says, everybody has Tomahawk missiles, when in fact only the U.S., the UK, and Australia and Japan have them, and that could have been anybody. It wasn't us. Then you know that nobody's going to face any kind of punishment.
It's so this kind of thing could and would could happen again. I mean,
absolutely. Just like it happened in the Kosovo War, it happened in the Gulf War. It happens every time we have an armed conflict with some other country. And then we're like, oh, our bad. Yeah, too bad about that. Sorry. And then we're supposed to just think that that's going to be the end of it.
And I mean, so
terrible.
It just seems so. And one of the excuses that's being floated by sort of corporate media is like, well, when you're in the early stages of a war, like there's not really enough time to check out all the old targeting data.
Right.
Okay, but again, help me out here. There's no world in which this wasn't a surprise for the United States or Israel, right? I mean, the United States has been planning this for months, right? If not longer.
Forever, yeah.
So,
figure we've been planning this since 1979 and presumably constantly updating the targets, supposedly.
Supposedly. And apparently we've taken out 5,000 targets at this stage.
Uh-huh.
That's a lot of
But you know what, though, that's to me that's a statistic that doesn't mean anything. Because what's a target? A target could be, a garage where there might or might not be a Jeep inside. We can call anything we want a target.
Sure. All right. Shall we do some questions?
Yeah.
All right. We like the questions, and we're sorry that we missed a few. Okay. Ray, thanks, $5. John, great new RT show, Deep State. Enjoyed it. Thanks for the $5.
I didn't know it was up. Hey, thanks. I'm going to check it out.
John Smith, thanks for the 2. Hey, John, I've been subscribed to the show on YouTube since 2.5K. You should absolutely go to Hassan's stream. He's not anti-American. He's anti-American imperialism.
I was just, the reason I paused when you spoke just a moment ago, Gray Horse, thanks for the $5, said, did you see Hassan Piker responded to the clip of you saying you're not going on his stream? He said quite a lot of choice words about you. Just wondering what your take on him is. I know what his fucking problem is. We're trying to work something out with his people. He needs to calm the fuck down. And on April the 9th, we'll get something done. Holy shit. What's wrong with people? Relax, buddy.
Handsome libertarian. Question for all three of us. What are your thoughts on the report of Iranian sleeper cells and Trump saying he knows about them? Potential 9/11 false flag?
No, I don't think so. Somebody asked me just a week ago if there were Iranian sleeper cells in the United States, and I said no. I still believe the answer is no. I think that the administration's lying to us. It's trying to scare us, and it's trying to bring people into line to support this war. there's never been any evidence that there were Iranian sleeper cells. There are Iranian intelligence officers who oftentimes are able to get into the country, usually not. I shouldn't say oftentimes that, or sometimes able to get into the country, usually not. Usually they have more ease getting into Canada, but they invariably get caught before they're even able to do their operation. So I'm not worried about the Iranians.
Yeah. All right. We will. Let's move on here. Jackson McGrath, thanks for the $2 Australian dollars. Favorite subject in Islamic subjects, I guess, X-theology. Okay. Jack Samuels, 480. Thanks for the $9.99. What's going on in NYC? Far-right protester Jack Lang, God, little neo-Nazi fucker, outside mayor's mansion, and counter-protesters clashing. Then to top it off, ISIS lone wolf, wolves, throwing an IED at the crowd mansion. What the hell? I mean, I don't know how to.
But this isn't really terribly unusual, right? Right, Ted? They're always going to be nuts in New York, or nuts going to New York to make some sort of a statement. Right?
Yeah, I mean, this is it. Yeah, and this is, look, it's not that complicated. I mean, Zoran Mamdani is a very controversial mayor, especially on the far right. They've turned him into a bête noire simply because he's Muslim, and it's motivated by racism, and you can see it all over like my X feed. Everybody I follow is like all these right wingers who are like, all Muslims must be deported, and blah blah blah. So Laura Loomer and all those kind of people. So these are all like Jake Lang is just trying to get notoriety for his cause, and then these two nimrods, fucking fools, like downloading their own join the download your own ISIS flag PDF. Collect them all. Show up and try to, make something out of their stupid, wretched excuses for lives. Yeah, I mean, there's not really a lot to say about it, unfortunately. I wish there were. There's no analysis because it's just random stupidity and media. Maxwell Mart, thanks. Question for John and Ted. Strong character in mainstream media is dead, and the Gen Pop is desperate for people like you. Could you two release a follow list of journalists you consider peers and that you respect? That's a
great question.
I guess I'd have to. God, I hate to say this, John. It's hard. I'm sure because there are some though.
The journalists that I have the deepest respect for, Ted, are independent journalists.
Oh, for sure.
People like Max Blumenthal, for example.
For sure.
I think Max is amazing. Aaron Maté, absolutely amazing. Kevin Gustala, these guys are incredible.
Jason Leopold's good.
Jason Leopold, absolutely wonderful. And we might call Jason mainstream. He's with Bloomberg. Jason's fantastic. But yeah, I mean, my mind doesn't even go to the mainstream outlets.
No.
As mainstream as I'm going to get, and I'm biased because I like him and he's a good guy, is Jake Tapper.
Yep.
And I know you go back probably farther with Jake than I do. He came to the prison to interview me in 2013, and we've been friends ever since.
Yeah, no, he's one of the good ones. I mean, for sure. But the thing is, let's just say he doesn't have full freedom of movement, right? Like if he found himself separated from CNN and had his own show, I guarantee you, it would be a more Tapperish experience, right? I mean,
I like him very much.
DBG, thanks for the 400. I don't know if those are yuan or yen or whatever. Hey, John and Ted, love you both, but I just wanted to say I disagree with John's comments on Jon Stewart being a Zionist. He's had Mehdi, Zoran, Oliver, and Bernie support him. He's called out Obama and Bibi. I agree he's no lefty. Yeah, I was
okay. I stand corrected.
I don't know.
And he's always, I'll tell you what. I met him one time. I met him one time, and he left the visit. It was in his office, and the visit just left a sour taste in my mouth because he had these Emmys just kind of strewn on the couch where you couldn't sit on the couch because there were Emmys just randomly laying across them. And I commented when I went out, I said, "Oh my God, he has so many Emmys that he just throws them on the couch like that." And the intern said, "No, he loves those Emmys. He does that to make it look like, it's no big deal. I just win these Emmys and I don't even care. I just throw them on my couch." And I was like, oh, he's one of these guys, a poser.
Yeah. I hope I'm not offending anyone, but I kind of feel like that's people like who like framed their college degree in their own house or something like that.
Yeah, I never understood that either. I don't even know where my degrees are.
I'm not sure I could put I know I have them in a box somewhere.
Yeah, they must be in a box in the garage, but I genuinely don't know where my degrees are.
Yeah, I mean, it's just sort of like, no, I kind of get like why a doctor or a psychologist would have it because, you want to make sure they went to medical school and whatever. Yeah. But, although I don't even know, Ryan, I don't really need that either. I'm going to assume they went to medical school, right?
Ryan Grimm, Katie Halper, both are awesome. I'm supposed to see Ryan tomorrow. Yeah, they're terrific. There are a lot of great independent journalists out there.
There are. Miss Moth, thanks for the $10. Greetings from Tbilisi, Georgia. Have either of you been to Georgia? And what do you think the Caucasus countries should do, given their location between Russia and Iran? Appreciate you guys a lot. I have been to Tbilisi. How about you?
I've not, but I am proud to say that my 23andMe test shows that I am something like 12% from the Caucasus. Another thing too. I don't know why, but my TikTok algorithm constantly feeds me these videos of people doing traditional Georgian singing that I am absolutely addicted to.
Huh.
It's just fantastic. And I cut out a recipe from the New York Times the other day for this traditional Georgian lamb stew that I'm going to make this weekend.
Oh, well, that's what I was about to say. Like, my main takeaway from Tbilisi is you're in danger of getting fat because the food is very good.
I can't wait to go.
And I love the wine too.
The wine is, I've subscribed to Wine Spectator magazine for 20 plus years. Georgian wine is some of the best in the world. And it's the most overlooked.
So true. Nobody ever, and it's very affordable.
Yes.
So in terms of what they should do, look, they could become a transit point in a true, Russian-Iranian military alliance that goes beyond just an intelligence cooperation agreement. Those could become a conduit point. But traditionally, countries that are in places like that between great powers, always survive by playing off both sides and trying to maintain as much, base level neutrality as possible. So I think that's that's obviously what they're doing.
Yeah.
But I would say Georgia is definitely more, traditionally it was more in Russia's sphere of influence for sure.
Agreed.
Gray Horse 88, thanks for the 5. Okay, so you already addressed that, but thanks for the $5 anyway. Gospel of Tommy, thanks for the $4.99. Love the show, guys. All evidence points to them bombing those girls on purpose. Why did they do it? I hate the people who started this war. I don't think they did this on purpose. I think they thought they thought they were lazy. They were reckless. They didn't care enough about the innocent lives to just say like to double, triple, quadruple check it out. But I don't think they said, oh, look, there be, an elementary school and let's blow it up because it's going to cause trouble. And it's going to, then they'll have people like us and the New York Times and, Democratic senators up their ass. So I really don't believe they did it on purpose.
I don't think they did it on purpose.
I think they're just fucking dumbasses. Now that doesn't make it any different. I mean, like, look, if you're DUI and you kill someone because you were fucking too stupid to call a taxi and you got into a car drunk, well, you probably didn't kill anyone on purpose, did you? But they're still just as fucking dead because of your recklessness. So to me, it's like a difference. It's a distinction without a difference.
I was watching one of these reality shows, one of these court shows yesterday, and I'm seeing that it looks like we may have just bombed Children's Hospital in Tehran.
Oh, lovely.
Check that out too. So I'm watching this cop show yesterday, and it's this guy, this defendant He's arrested 3 times for possession with intent to distribute PCP, which I didn't even know people still did PCP.
It's
right?
so 80s.
It's so 80s, angel dust. So the judge reluctantly gives him bond, said, you better clean up your act. I'm going to give you bond. It's your last chance. He goes out on bond, smokes PCP, and hits and kills a guy. So he's like, Your Honor, I'd really like to have a second chance. And the judge is like, this was your 4th chance. And you killed somebody. He ended up getting 50 years. But,
50 years is insane, but that's our
50
system.
years is insane. But it was his 4th PCP related conviction. PCP,
I'd be okay with
I hadn't even heard the term.
Just duct tape the guy to a board and never let him leave anywhere.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it's going to come down to.
God. Josh Nippleton, my apologies. Thanks for the $13.99 Canadian. Hey, Ted. Hey, John. Love how kind and thoughtful you both are. Question for John. During your time in the Muslim world, did you ever have to read and analyze the Quran in order to understand Muslim ideology?
No, but I certainly studied it and read it in its entirety when I was in college. In the State Department, less so in the CIA, but in the State Department, it's all about day-to-day activities. The only time I ever really needed to have even any background in the Quran was when Ambassador David Ransom, for whom I worked in Bahrain, went to meet the Minister of Awqaf and Islamic Affairs. And I was the translator and the note taker. That was the only time the Quran ever came up.
I mean, the implication that we've heard post 9/11 is that kind of like, everybody's following, that there's a really tight, obvious link between the religion and the politics, and particularly Islamic terrorism. And I think, John, this is your area of expertise. But my impression, for example, in Afghanistan was that so much of this is cultural and tribal as well, a lot more of it, and that often the Quran is sort of bent and interpreted to fit whatever the cultural interpretation is.
That is absolutely true.
And stuff like that.
Absolutely true. And that's why in Islam, just as in Christianity, just as in Judaism, there are so many different bents to it,
Yeah, it's billions of people.
Yeah. 2 billion Muslims, 2.5 billion Christians, and there are 99 ways from Sunday, no pun intended, to interpret the tenets of it.
It's like the Simpsons line, right? Like, whether you're Christian, Muslim, or, and then there's Apu, miscellaneous.
Thank you. Come again.
Vilmar Air, thanks for the $2 Canadian. Scared there's no off-ramp now. What next for DXB?
I'm scared there's no off-ramp as well. I think this is a serious problem.
I don't think there's an off-ramp right now. The thing is, look, the Iranians don't want their lawn mowed, right, as the Israelis say it. They don't want this to happen anymore. They need some kind of permanent deal. Otherwise, there's no reason for them not to keep fighting.
Yeah. We have an ad we don't want to lose. Okay,
let's do it. Sorry, thank you for that, John. Okay, still haven't tried 1775 coffee. Now's your deal. Now's your shot. The 1775 starter kit just dropped, only 1,000 units. You're getting the bold dark roast that hits hard, the smooth medium roast, and the Vitality mushroom coffee for clean energy and low laser focus. No crash, all single origin, small batch, toxin free, and mold free. Plus, you're also getting a gold spoon clip because freedom isn't scooped with plastic, a frother strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's opinions, and a black 1775 tumbler, $170 worth of coffee and gear. Yours for $99. This is for the ones who've been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble, wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler, it is. Go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something just like Rumble does. Okay, thank you for that, John. I would have easily just blown through that, but now I have to go back and find out where I was. Okay. Okay, here we go. KJ164, $9.99. Thank you so much. Hi, Ted. Hi, John. Since Turkey pulled $92 billion in economic assets from Israel, do you think they're getting ready to attack? You deserve all the success you're getting, John.
Oh, thank you.
In other words, do we think the Turks are ready to attack? The Turks are not going to attack the Israelis.
I will let you in on a little secret. Last night, I had dinner with two senior officials from the Turkish Foreign Ministry. And we talked about this very issue. And as soon as I brought it up, they looked at each other and they both started smiling. And they said, this is not going to happen. There is not going to be hostilities between Turkey and Israel. But if the Israelis were to provoke, and I thought this was so interesting, Ted, I had not thought of it. If the Israelis were to attack Turkey, Turkey would destroy them, and Turkey would not ask NATO to invoke Article 5.
Would Israel pull the Samson option, though?
We talked about that.
Yeah.
And he said he didn't think so because Turkey has no interest whatsoever in occupying Israel. It would be just to bloody Israel's, face and nose and tell them, you stay on your side of the border and we'll stay on ours.
Yeah, fuck off and go away.
That's right.
But I don't think the Israelis are stupid enough to do that.
I can't imagine. The Israelis do a lot of stupid things, but not something that stupid.
Overthrowing Assad, that was stupid.
Yeah, but you attack a NATO country just because you don't like their leader?
No, that's not going to happen. The new Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei has just issued, this is breaking news, a statement dear combatant brothers, the demand of the masses and the continuation of an effective and regret-inducing defense. He did not appear on camera. He said the lever of closing the Strait of Hormuz must certainly continue to be used as well. Studies have been conducted on opening other fronts in which the enemy has little experience and would be highly vulnerable. I'm reading cyber here. Their activation will take place if the wartime situation continues and in accordance with the considerations of expediency. Okay, and then there's just sort of some boilerplate thanks to their troops. John, when I was last I entered Iran, I was questioned by Iranian intelligence officers for about 4 hours at the border.
Wow, 4 hours
with Afghanistan. Yeah, and toward the end of the conversation, by the way, these guys are they're exactly like Mossad guys. They kind of could be twins. They're always in their 20s. They kind of have big shit-eating grins. They always wear a sports jacket and just a t-shirt underneath. They're the same, and except the Iranian ones are nicer. And anyway, at the end of it, the guy says, he's like, "Can I get your email address? I just really want to keep in touch with you." And I'm like, "You don't really want to just keep in touch with me, do you?" And he started laughing, and I was like, "This was in when was this? 2011," and it's like. He's not looking to keep in touch. I think he wanted to we're going to get your email address and we'll hack it, right? Yeah. And that was a long time ago. I mean, do we know how Iran's cyber warfare, what their cyber warfare capabilities are?
All we see in the reporting is when Iran is the victim of cyber warfare. Mm-hmm. I don't think I know anything about Iran's capabilities.
That's interesting.
We hear about Stuxnet and how the Americans and the Israelis were crowing about their success with Stuxnet.
Well, the Iranians were retards.
They were.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were. And then Stuxnet, leaked and went all over the Middle East.
Yes. Yeah, it's crazy. I don't think there's an off-ramp.
I don't either.
Ted and John, thanks for the $10 from Zilu. Could you talk about the CIA's surveillance targeting program? EM weapons, electromagnetic, I assume, mind control, and gang stalking on innocent civilians. People say it's a torture program. targeted justice is fighting, and then I don't know, it's cut off. But anyway, that you get the gist of it.
Yeah, the CIA doesn't do that. The CIA hasn't even experimented with it since 1975. It's my understanding that there is no such thing as gang stalking.
What is gang stalking? Gang
stalking. I get these queries almost every day. I got one yesterday where people say, well, I'll tell you exactly what the guy said yesterday. He said that he's been under close-in surveillance for the last 6 years. He's an Uber driver, and the CIA has been following him everywhere he goes. Just yesterday, he was in the grocery store and he turned to look and there was a man staring at him. And then when he's laying in bed at night, they're using electromagnetic weapons against him and it gives him a headache and he can't sleep. And they follow him everywhere he goes. It's like, no, that's mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
You need to see a psychiatrist, not a former CIA officer.
But what does gang stalking mean?
Gang stalking is when it's a whole gang of people and they're constantly on you. Like some are following you close in, some are following you from a distance, some are beaming waves at you, some are in cars around you. It's all made up. It's all in their minds.
Yeah, I mean, you tell me, but aren't intelligence operations are expensive, salaries are expensive. If you were, and you don't want to attract attention, right?
And an operation like that at most would last a day or two, and it would be targeted against somebody who had very specific information that the CIA needed. Not some Uber driver driving around, Kentucky. It's just not real life. And this targeted justice, it's targeted justice, I don't know, .com or .org. It's a place where all these people go to talk about how the CIA is, stealing their dreams and planted a chip in the filling in their tooth and communicating through some kind of waves.
I have heard I have heard, I forget where I read this, but apparently it is, some people have credibly picked up like AM, FM radio waves through their feelings. And then they thought that it meant that they were being spied on.
Yes.
But really they were just picking up radio waves.
Absolutely true.
Or from cop cars or, whatever, whoever's using, construction workers using radio. Okay, let's see. Thanks for the $1 from Hey Mike. John, you should go on. Everyone's telling you to go on things. Slavos Halkia's Slavi World podcast. My two favorite Greek Americans.
I never heard of it, but I'm going to check it out.
Okay.
Thanks.
BJ O'Donnell, $5. Thank you very much. Hey all, with the information that AI is playing a part in the selection of targets for the current war in Iran, is it possible the school was targeted by AI? What would be the implication of this? Now, the thing is, that question has been directly answered by the administration.
Yeah.
They deny it stridently. I'm inclined to believe them here.
I think this was a human error.
Yeah.
In fact, the Washington Post, on the front page of the Washington Post this morning, they have a very long explanation of how this was fucked up every step of the way.
Oh, I look forward to reading that. It pisses me off, though. Look, as far as I'm concerned, I just want to be clear. Morally, to me, recklessness to that extent is no different than if it was intentional. The moral culpability of the United States and President Trump and everyone in his administration who has anything to do with this is the same. To me, it's a war crime either way. Like, who cares? Like, oh, I just didn't give a shit. I didn't do my homework, and so I'm sorry your daughter's dead. That doesn't really help me as a dad, does it?
No.
So, MM5478, thanks for the 10. Just a few dollars to say thanks from a career public defender. You guys are fighting for our democracy
and wonderful.
The rule of law. Well done, gentlemen.
The public defenders are the unsung heroes of the American judicial system. They're grotesquely overworked and underpaid, and we need lots more money to give to them.
Here. Couldn't agree more. Jackson McGrath, thanks for the $2 Australian, excluding Islamic theology. I don't know what that is. I think it's a follow-up to a previous comment. Repentant 1645, thanks for the $4.99 British pounds. With all these events unfolding, nobody seems to be speaking about Hamas. Thank you for bringing this up. Do you both believe they may strike again or be planning something? Anything's possible. Look, they talk about resilience, right? I mean, those guys they're like cockroaches. You can't kill them. I think survival's the win. I don't know, John, what do you think? I mean, Hezbollah has opened up a front against Israel for real, 3 years late, but I guess. But here we are. Could Hamas have some trick up their sleeve? It's hard to believe at this stage.
It would be hard to believe because their patrons have kind of been taken out, at least temporarily. Sure, I think we should expect Hamas to reconstitute itself. It will never be a real threat to Israel, and it will result in Israeli counterstrikes and counterattacks that would dwarf anything that Hamas could do to the Israelis. So kind of more of the same, I think.
Yeah, I think that's good. But I think that's a valuable reminder that we should definitely keep an eye on Hamas. Agbalad, thanks for the 1,000 Nigerian, whatever the currency of Nigeria is.
Thank you.
Greetings from Lagos. I've never heard John talk about Nigeria. Interested to know if he's ever had anything to do with Nigeria during his career.
Not a single thing. I will say that my colleagues in the Counterterrorism Center thoroughly enjoyed working with the Nigerians. We have a close relationship with the Nigerians, especially in the fight against terrorism in the Sahel. So relations are good, close cooperation, but I never had occasion to go. Even when I was doing training, counterterrorist training, there weren't many of us in that branch. It was a branch of like 4 guys and a chief. And I was all Middle East. And then I think toward the end, I picked up Thailand. But yeah, Africa wasn't my thing.
Speaking of the Sahel, Culture Junkie, thanks for the €5. I want to hear more about the Sahel region and the roles of countries like Algeria in there.
Yeah, the Sahel is a godforsaken mess. They are the definition of poor, desperate. There's no oil, right? So it's not like an oil boom.
Not as far as we know.
As far as we know.
I've started saying that because the places that we thought never had oil.
Guyana.
Kyrgyzstan.
That's right.
Sorry, not Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan.
Oh, was it Tajikistan? Geez, they're even more poor than Kyrgyzstan.
Yeah, so they're going to be very happy about it. Yeah, so apparently there's like new deep drilling technology, and they can go down 1.5 miles. The
Russians developed that.
And they found, well, maybe the Russians passed it on to the Tajiks because they have very close relations.
Interesting. Yeah. The Russians got down so far. They went down like 3 miles, and they had to stop because the drill bits kept melting.
Oh, from the
heat
from the lava.
Earth. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's great. Another thing I read is that oil workers at oil derricks, because it's it's mostly rotting plants, that they pull out like 200 million year old ferns and stuff, and then they fall apart when they hit the air.
Wow.
So cool. We think it's dead dinosaurs, but it's really not. John, this is a question from Christine, $7.99 Australian dollars. How do you rate agents from other intelligence agencies? Are there any respect, hate, fear, etc.? Have you had much exposure to them in the field? Well, obviously.
Lots and lots of exposure. I said to somebody the other day, the scene in every James Bond movie where James bumps into the CIA guy? The reason that's in all the movies is because that happens every single day. And you're like, hello, John. Hello, Nigel. Stay away from the deputy prime minister, Nigel.
He's mine.
That happened to me once in Kuwait. We were both going after the same target. And I see this guy is like, shit. And he comes up to me. He's like, hello, John. I said, hello, Ian. What are you doing here? I had to deal with this one French guy one time. So I was instructed to meet with a French intelligence officer. So I called him and I said, "Hey, how are you? I'm John. Nice to talk to you. Would you like to get together for lunch?" And he's like, "Yes, meet me at the intersection of First Avenue and Maple Street," right? And I'm like, "Okay, that's odd.
Why not just give me the name of a restaurant?"
Yeah. So I'm standing there on the corner, and then he comes down the side street, makes a quick right turn, and he's like, "Jump in." And I said, "You set me up for a car pickup meeting?" It's called the CPU. A car pickup meeting. I am not your asset. We're colleagues. I said, "I'm walking down to this restaurant down here. I'll meet you there, but I'm not getting in your car." I'm offended.
What do you? Why are you offended?
So a car pickup is you've done a surveillance detection route to get to an intersection on a black road. Black meaning not a main road, so nobody can see you, right? So you're going down this road, you make a quick right, the agent jumps in your car and ducks down, and you continue on. So even if you are being followed, nobody saw the agent get in your car. Well, buddy, we're having lunch to discuss some joint operation. I'm not getting in your car. Yeah, I'm not your recruited asset. French. Oh, dramatic.
Well, I mean, that's my family. Chirekina, thanks for the $5. Trump seems to hope the war will cancel or win the midterms. Do you think he's right? I agree with that analysis. I don't think it can possibly win the midterms. I mean, look, here's the thing. You have a war that at most is approved of or tolerated by 27% of the public, 40% by some accounts, right? I mean, wars never gain in popularity ever. World War II didn't gain in popularity, and it was the most popular American war ever. I mean, wars are hard. Wars kill people. Wars cost money. The public turns against them. There's no world in which we look back in December and say, wow, the Republicans picked up seats in the House and it turned out it's because of the war. That's not possible. So I think it could be part of an excuse to declare a national emergency and cancel an election, or to try to do that. I think. I know it sounds paranoid. But I mean, I keep coming back to it. I mean, I think if I'm Donald Trump, I don't want to go to jail in 2029. That means they got to cancel 2028. And it's easier to cancel 2026 than it is to cancel 2028. And if you cancel 2026, then it's easier, like Zelensky, to go back later and say, oh, we canceled the parliamentary elections. Now we'll cancel. I mean, that's my thinking.
I pray to God that you're wrong.
Me too.
But I don't know. We have consistently been taken by surprise with some of these issues. So I'm not making any predictions.
All right, we've got a bunch of super chats to get through, and I do want to get to them and to any others that we can. But I do want to ask you about the Save America Act. So, we talked about this, like my column last week, not the current one. Basically, you and I both talked about how we both agree that the Save America Act basically disproportionately disenfranchises, people who can't put their hands on a passport or a birth certificate with the same name that they currently have. Like they got married, most likely that, or let's say they transitioned, but that's a fraction of 1%. So Republicans are fighting for it, even though it's going to hurt them at the polls. Democrats are against it, even though it's going to help them at the polls. Now, President Trump, though, it's a full court press on the right, is leaning on John Thune, and basically he's demanding what's his name? Jimmy Stewart.
Goes to Washington.
He wants a talking filibuster, old school. Maybe wear your diapers and
that is old school, and it's a lot of work.
And Thune says, well, we don't even have the votes to do the talking filibuster. In other words, we just don't have, as Donald Trump would say, you don't have the cards. So what's going on here on the Republican side?
John Thune is exhibiting something called what's the name of it? Leadership.
Oh, right, that.
Right, that. Something I had to think about because we haven't seen it anywhere in Washington for so long.
Right.
John Thune is is taking the long view here. That if you want to maintain your power and authority, not just yours personally, but the body's power and authority, then you're going to maintain the filibuster. Of course, Donald Trump wants to do away with the filibuster. Every president wants to do away with the filibuster so he can ram his projects through. But Thune knows that, and this is a lesson that Harry Reid learned the hard way, if you do away with the filibuster, the other side's going to be back in power probably sooner rather than later, and you're going to be screwed. You know, Obama wanted so badly to force through his judicial nominees. And so Harry Reid lifted the filibuster when it came to judicial nominees. And that's how we have all these right-wing crazy people on the Supreme Court. That was Harry Reid's fault. And John Thune doesn't want to make it worse.
John, I'm very mortified. We have 6 more or 7 more super chats to get to in just a couple of minutes. The QP sub, thanks for the $50, Mr. Kiriakou. I respect what you did and wish you success with your pardon. How important is Romania for U.S. military positioning toward the Middle East today? Also, is there credible evidence of CIA involvement in Romania's 1989 revolution? I guess that's against Nicolae Ceausescu.
Oh man, I wish I had 5 minutes for this. Romania is increasingly important vis-a-vis the Middle East. The Greeks can't take any more American, planes, ships, all that stuff. It's full. Everything's full. The Turks are doing their own thing. The next best bet is Romania, maybe Bulgaria, but Romania and the United States are very close. The militaries, the intelligence services are very close. So Romania is playing that role.
SBR Slav, thanks for the tenor. A military that can drop a bomb through a window does not accidentally hit a school. We've been witnessing the use of the Dahiyya doctrine in Palestine and now Iran. It is simply terrorism. I mean, look, we don't know. Of course, there's a big, let's not conflate accuracy by GPS with, we could definitely hit the target. The question is, do we know what the target is?
That's the thing. Robbie says he needs to pop on real quick.
Okay, here we go.
Howdy, real quick. I know we're almost out of time and there's a bunch of rants and super chats. I need y'all to do me a favor. Take a picture of it. Take a picture of your rant. Email it to me, westglaciergaming@gmail.com. I will put it at the top of the stack tomorrow morning.
Thank you, Robbie.
Easiest way to make this happen.
Okay. And then also, thank you for addressing gang stalking. That's Hogs Candyland, $2. Love the show from Tristan. Thanks for the 1999. Surprise Judeo-Christian tagline sticks when Islam and Muslims love and revere Jesus and Mother Mary. Yeah. Propaganda against Islam and Muslims keeps natural relations from further forming.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah, that is true. Fellas, okay, these two are gonna have to go with the 2 bottom ones, Robbie. We're gonna do them tomorrow. Thank you so much. Our apologies for the not being able to get to everything, but that's how it goes. We are here at 9 a.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday. We'll be back tomorrow, Friday, March 13th. And hopefully have a happy Friday the 13th. John, nice to see you as always.
Thanks, everybody.
And stay tuned for the TMI show coming up right now. DMZ America podcast with Vietnam vet and legendary editorial cartoonist Jeff Danziger will be joining Scott Stantis and I at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern time. We're weekly only on Thursdays. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.